Yes, this is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, DYD Nation, Jeff Woldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. It's Monday. It's President's Day. And look, hopefully everybody had a pretty good Valentine's Day on Friday. We're not here, but we're here now. Got a great show for you guys today, including the one word Dennis Prager really wants to say, but he just can't. And he's so very, very mad. We'll talk about that. Then we've got Don Jr. Claiming that he had stood in communist breadlines. Oh, I love that story. That's always fun. We've got a never Trump Republican going against Bernie Sanders, trying to stop him in Nevada. You're not going to believe that guy's passed. So we're going to look into that. We have, of course, progressives versus Michael Bloomberg. There's an interesting poll that goes along with that. So for those of you who are subscribed on YouTube, I sent a poll out earlier, not 20 minutes ago. So there's plenty of time for you to go and answer whether or not you would vote for Michael Bloomberg. So far, the results, and I'll look at these periodically because I think it's fascinating what you guys think about it. So far, about 75% of you polled will not vote for Michael Bloomberg. So, wow. Massive pushback against Bloomberg for good reason. I'm going to get to that segment as well. And so, look, go vote in that. There's only like 173 people that have responded so far. So do that. Again, I'll check on that and maybe give a final results tally tomorrow. Whether or not you would support or vote for Michael Bloomberg if he won the nomination. And the reason, of course, I put it in, quotation marks is we all know that Bloomberg is actually not winning the nomination. He's going to try to buy it. And so he's bypassing all the rules. The DNC has literally changed their rules to allow Michael Bloomberg to continue running and to continue being and actually be in the debates. And so I think it's obvious what's going on here. But nonetheless, if you guys say, hey, look, I understand Bloomberg's terrible, but what about Donald Trump? Then you're probably going to answer that, yes, you will vote for Bloomberg. And so put that down. I just want to see where you guys are at. I'm curious because I have my own position. And you guys, I will let you know about that later on during the segment. So, all right, anyway. Fascinating. Love these results. All right. So we'll start out with some stories here. Please like and share, before you do anything. Like and share the stream. Very important. Obviously, super chats and member comments and stuff. I love that. I love to read your comments. So if you could send those, great. I appreciate it very much. Okay. Oh, interesting. James Watson in the chat says, I think I might vote for Trump over Bloomberg because at the end of the day, electing Bloomberg would mean the final end to our democracy. That's interesting. Look, I said I wasn't going to spoil it, but I might spoil it anyway. So I think of Bloomberg as an intelligent Trump. Like I've said it before on Twitter, Bloomberg is Trump without the brain melt. And you can look at his entire everything that he has said up till now, up till he started running in the election. And so when you look at what they've actually said, I mean, the record speaks for itself. Sarah with the super chat says, support Bernie by supporting progressive media. Well, thank you, Sarah. I do appreciate that. And I do plan to give to Bernie Sanders as well. Chris Green points out, nice t-shirt, if only it were available in your shop. Oh, wait, it is. Yes, you can get this shirt at our Teespring shop. You can get to the link in the description of this video, of this live stream. So thank you for pointing that out, Chris. It is a very comfortable shirt, that's for sure. And by the way, what it says on it is basically true. What if this isn't rock bottom? What if we get the intelligent Trump afterwards? Oh, God. Judy Truitt points out it's Trump without the Adderall and cocaine. Yep, absolutely. All right. And Monica G points out it's a possible reality. Heard that Bloomberg has considered asking Hillary Clinton to be the VP. Look, I don't know if that rumor is correct, but it is a rumor that's going around. I've been hearing all weekend about it, and I've been seeing about it, and noticed that, it's in the Daily Mail. But, man, wouldn't that be a Bloomberg move? We're going to take the least popular politician in the country, which she still is. Donald Trump is still a little bit more popular than she is. I don't know how. Well, I do know how. It's because she pops up every, couple of months to either sell a book or to criticize Bernie Sanders. Which, look, if she would come out and say, hey, man, look, I support all the Democrats. I think we got a great field. It wouldn't be a problem. But she comes out and says, Bernie Sanders, terrible, bros, Russia, blah, blah, blah. I hate the Democratic voter. Come on, dude. Really? Come on. All right, anyway. So let's go. Yeah, it's a terrible rumor. All right, anyway. And it would literally be the death of the Democratic Party. If they both somehow, Bloomberg gets the nomination and says, okay, Hillary's going to be my VP. Oh, dear God. You might as well be handing it over to Donald Trump on a silver platter. Ugh. All right, anyway. Let's get into the segments. Dennis Prager, creator of the right-wing Prager University, which is not a real university. It's in fact as much of a university as Trump University was, really hates not being able to say the N-word. Take a look.
You mentioned that President Truman used to use the N-word all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 seconds later, you followed it up with the word
Mm-hmm.
So
why didn't I say K-word?
Why didn't you say like the K-word?
Because the left has made it impossible to say the N-word any longer. That's disgusting. It's a farce. It's the only word that you can't say in the English language.
Why is it okay to say the K-word?
Because the left doesn't give a damn about that word. Because that's why. The left runs the country in the culture. And the more the left controls, the more totalitarian it is. That is not an attack. It's a statement of fact, like 2 + 2 = 4. It is idiotic that you cannot say the N-word. Idiotic. Of course, you should never call anybody the N-word. That's despicable. But to say the word, you can't even say that the word is despicable. You have to say the N-word.
Okay, wow. So there's obviously a ton of ridiculous stuff to break down in that. But the fact that, oh no, liberals, we don't care about the other word, that anti-Semitic smear that I literally had to go and bleep out, which he had said. Yes, I cared so little about the use of that word that I had to go and censor that. Because leftists, we don't care at all about anti-Semitic slurs. Oh no, we're the anti-Semitic ones because we have an issue with the treatment of the Palestinians by the right-wing Israeli government. Dennis Prager is an idiot. All right, anyway, moving on, right? Now he says the left has made it impossible to say the N-word. No, you can say it. No, you can say it all day. You can go on the corner and scream out the N-word if you want to. You're allowed to do that. The government's not going to come down there and place a black bar over your mouth and then blare out beeps every time you say it. No, you can say it. You can say it. You're not going to get in trouble for saying it. I mean, there will be some people that are obviously upset at you, but you're Dennis Prager. You're a tough guy, right? You're a right winger, and so you don't have to worry about what those snowflakes say, getting all offended by the N-word. Oh no, you don't have to say. You don't have to worry about any of that. No, here's the thing that Dennis Prager and these right wingers want. They want to say the word without consequences, and that's the issue, right? So now when he talks about, oh, you can't even say the word to say that it's a bad word. Yes, actually you can. It really does depend on the context. So if you're saying, look, I think the N-word's bad. Okay, and you say it in context. Hey, that's a terrible statement. That's obviously racist and etc. Well, then everybody knows what you're saying. You're not going to get crap for it, right? But why is there such a fascination with the right wing wanting to say that word? Why? Why is it something that they can't? They're like, oh, I'm so mad. I can't say that word. I just really want to say it. I really want to yell it out. No, it's because he wants to. He wants to say. I know he says, well, obviously I'd never call someone that word. Then why are you so hung up on wanting to say it? Again, normal people don't want to say that word unless they want to use it as a slur because that's what it is. That's what it is. Again, if you quote it in context, as I have on this show, I have said that word on the show when I've quoted right-wing figures who use that word as a slur. Quoted them in context. Nobody comes after me for it. I'm just as pasty as Dennis Prager. What matters is the context and how you use it. And Dennis Prager is acting like, oh no, there's no context that exists whatsoever. If you say the word as I want to say it, well, then I'm going to get in trouble. I don't like that. And so I want the freedom this is what free speech means to them, right? Free speech means I can go and say any damn thing I want, and I am free from consequences. And that's it. And I'm not talking about government consequences. The government's not going to come and shut them down, right? Oh, how dare you, Dennis Prager? What are you going to do? Like, I could say that on my show, and I will get demonetized. Because, of course, that, people don't like hearing that word, right? That's a consequence of that free speech. Again, Dennis Prager says, I don't want any consequences. The right wing say, I don't want any consequences for the speech. I don't want any negative thing. I just want to say whatever I want. I want to slur. I want to hurl slurs at people, and I don't care how they feel. I just want to say it, and he can't wait to say it. That's the whole movement here. As Brandon Donato in the chat says, it's freedom from getting dunked on. And he's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And see, this is their whole problem with the political correctness. And this is what's part of it, right? You don't know what the real definition of political correctness is? It's basically when the Nazis say, we don't want you saying facts because facts make us look bad, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to force you by gunpoint to say things that are not true, but are politically correct for us, that make us look good. They're not factually correct. They're politically correct. That's what the right wing likes to do now. So all those news reporters back then were forced to be, politically correct, not factually correct. So Prager, look, Prager, I don't think he's a fan of actual free speech. I think it's just a cover that they use to advocate for the use of hateful incendiary language without having to face any sort of personal or professional consequences for using said language. Because look, that's who they are. Okay. Mithro says he wants to say it because he's racist. Yes, agreed. It's Daniel S says it's micro aggressive racism. It's the chicken shitness of chicken shit racist. Oh damn! Probably shouldn't have said that. No, I don't know. I don't want to get demonetized, but yes. No, you're right though. Absolutely. By the way, going back to the super chats here. We have Elwell that says, I'm very frustrated by potential voters scolding and vilifying us Bernie bros. And that's a completely different discussion. In fact, earlier today, Bloomberg comes out with an ad that he's plastering everywhere about the mean Bernie bros and how terrible they are. Oh, you know what else is terrible? Stop and frisk. Yeah, that was pretty terrible. The blatant racism from Bloomberg when he was mayor of New York. Yeah, that's pretty terrible. Nope. Bernie bros said something mean about you online. Posted a picture of a pig shitting on their own balls. Well, I mean, obviously, you don't want healthcare. You don't want to stop 45,000, or I believe the revised number is 68,000 now. People who died from lack of healthcare. No, I was going to vote for the person who was going to put a stop to that, but a mean Bernie bro said something wrong about me online. So, not good. It's ridiculous. Okay. Moving on here. Now, Donald Trump Jr. wants you to know that he knows poverty. He knows the evils of communism because for summers, he had to live under it.
A communist country. I grew up, I spoke the language. I have friends from communist Czechoslovakia. I waited in those, breadlines. I can assure you they are not as glamorous as Bernie and, academia today make them out to be. That's why there's no advocates for socialism or communism who actually grew up in those places, who actually live there. They all come here. The boats only go one way, Sean.
They only go in one way, right? I mean, look, and there's a reason, because I stood in the breadlines, and they're so not glamorous. All right, so look, this is of course a discussion about Bernie Sanders. And anytime they bring up communism, breadlines, etc., and he even referenced Bernie in that, you know who they're talking about. You know what they're talking about. That Bernie Sanders is communist. Bernie Sanders is not a communist. All right, for one. I mean, look, it's a complete and total lie. It's a complete and total fabrication. Bernie Sanders is a social democrat along the lines of FDR, who helped create some of the greatest systems, that the most popular programs in America. So, look, all right, you want to call that communism? That's up to you, man. But you're factually 100% wrong. Now, what's also a lie is that he had grown up under Soviet-style communism when he was talking about. In reality, he used to summer in Czechoslovakia. So now understand, right? This was something that I was unaware of until my college years, right? So people would talk about, and rich people, they would ask each other, oh, where do you summer, right? Where do you summer? Now, I had never heard that because I'm not a rich person. So I had never heard that phrase. What are you talking about? Summer? Where do I summer? I spend summers at home because I'm broke and I work. What do you do in the summer? Where do you summer? I summer at my freaking job. That's where I summer. And I winter. And I basically spend pretty much all my time working just to try and pay the goddamn bills. I still don't have health insurance. Kind of strange question, I thought. Well, rich people basically is where they go on vacation for an entire summer and not do anything, not work because they don't have to. And so this is what Donald Trump's family used to do. Don Jr. especially used to go as a kid and used to summer in Czechoslovakia. Well, now, why would you summer somewhere where there's such rampant poverty under communism, right? Where you had to wait in those breadlines. Look, according to The Guardian, quote, growing up, Don Jr. spent summer staying with his maternal grandparents outside Prague. In particular, Ivana Trump's father, Milo Zelnicek, was a role model, instilling in his grandson a love of hunting and fishing. Oh, but yet it's communism, so they were hunting rats and dogs, because it's communism. It's Venezuela eating rats. I mean, that's what they are hunting for, obviously. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I've got a picture. I have a picture of Don Jr. and of course the whole family, right? Spending some of their time in these communist hellhole, right? Standing in these red lines. Look, take a look. Oh my God. The humanity. That looks awful. Somebody help those poor, malnourished children. Look at that. Look at that. Jesus. Czechoslovakia, folks. Communist hellhole. Don Jr. is lucky to have made it out alive. I tell you what. All right. Anyway. Now, look, I'm being ridiculous here, but look, Don Jr., shameless liar, just like his father. The line smear Bernie Sanders and, of course, other Democrats as communists, which is, again, not true, is just pure McCarthy garbage. Universal healthcare. This is what Bernie Sanders is mainly running on, right? His main thing is Medicare for all. Let's get Medicare for all, right? That's universal healthcare. That is so incredibly far from Soviet authoritarian communism, which again isn't necessarily real communism. I'm not going to go down that, basically that, rabbit hole. You guys should know enough about the differences between socialism, capitalism, communism, authoritarianism. At least you would think, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people seem to not understand any of those and regularly conflate all of them. But here's the truth. We have socialist systems here in America. Yes, we have socialism. It's called Social Security and Medicare. And not only that, but you have the military, public education, among many other things, right? And so we have those systems. And no, we're not eating rats. This isn't a communist hellhole, right? So understand what we have is a mixed market system, right? And a mixed market, we should have, and here's the thing that Bernie Sanders is going for. Denmark is capitalist with strong social safety nets. It's a social democracy. That's what Bernie Sanders wants. Capitalism alongside with very strong safety nets and government regulations. That's it. So now here's the best part, right? About Don Jr. Now he talks about everybody who's from there, obviously escaping communism and warning about people like Bernie Sanders, who's going to bring communism to America. Can't have that. Now there's a website for Czech expats, right? So these are people that left Czechoslovakia, right? The boats only go one way. Okay. So now here's what they said. Quote, of course, Bernie Sanders' concept of democratic socialism doesn't directly align with the kind of communism practiced in the former USSR. Many of his ideals, including universal health care, are already in place in most Western nations, including the present-day Czech Republic. Whoops. Now, here's the thing. If Bernie Sanders were in Europe right now, he would be a centrist, center-left politician. He would be mainstream. Not radical, not fringe, not crazy. But here in America, the people who should be considered fringe, crazy, are mainstreamed. And so that's the problem, okay? And so you've got people out there that are so incredibly shameless. All they want to do is protect their hordes of obscene wealth from those who would rather see some of that wealth get taxed and redistributed so that people don't die from having to ration their medication. That's it. Now, look, some new numbers had come out. A new study, 68,000 people die from lack of access to their medications, right? Due to lack of access to healthcare, okay? They can't afford it, and so they die. That is here in America. That is not in the Czech Republic. If you are in favor of continuing that system where we spend more than any other nation in the developed world and yet get less, so much less, with so many people that die. If you want to continue that system in order to protect your wealth, then you're a goddamn monster. Speaking of monstrous people, by the way, I do see a lot of you referencing Chris Matthews. And you'd absolutely be right about that. I need to do something like what I did with the Trump opener, right? I need to put something like with Chris Matthews and Bernie Sanders on that. Because, look, here's the thing, right? Bernie Sanders wants to bring this, healthcare, right? Living wage and all that stuff. And they go after him viciously. And all I want to do is to say,
oh, well, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry I want to bring you healthcare. I'm sorry I want to make life better for not just you, but everybody in this country. And it's not like we can't do it. We totally can do it. But their greed, of course, gets in the way. Okay, anyway. A right-wing Republican has hatched a plan to stop Bernie Sanders in Nevada by turning out Republicans to vote against him. So now that's interesting. You would think, of course, that the ultimate plan would be to do a Pied Piper strategy, where they would say, oh no, Republicans, vote for Bernie Sanders so that he can lose to Donald Trump. Tells me that they're a little bit nervous. So let me give you some details here about this. So now, this is Tim Miller. Tim Miller is a former Jeb. He had worked for Jeb's presidential campaign. That's Jeb Bush. Okay. And so, this guy.
Please clap.
Right. So Tim Miller worked for this guy and had also spread anti-Semitic tropes about George Soros back in 2018. This guy is now behind a dark money effort in Nevada to turn out Republican voters to vote against Bernie Sanders in the caucuses in Nevada. So now he is one of the directors of the new company Center Action Now, and they are targeting Bernie Sanders in Nevada. Now, the Nevada Independents reported on this. This is from Megan Messerly, and they said the Center for Action Now memo that they had reported on details plans to mobilize right-wing voters in the state dissatisfied with President Donald Trump to weigh in on the primary to ensure the Democratic Party doesn't stray from the center-right lane. So what they want, of course, is to elevate and to try to stop Bernie Sanders and to make sure the Democratic Party elevates someone like a Pete Buttigieg or a Michael Bloomberg, right? A center-right Republican, center-right Democrat, or maybe even like an A.B. Klobuchar, so that they could be served up to Donald Trump. And of course, Donald Trump would win. Look, and even if he doesn't win in that case, especially when you're talking about Michael Bloomberg, Well, the rich are going to still be protected. Tax cuts are still going to be in effect. Taxes will still stay low. That's the entire reason that Michael Bloomberg is running in the first place, is to make sure that basically nothing changes. So now, let me go to Miller here, and he's saying, quote, the voters we're talking to, they're not happy with the state of the Republican Party. They're not happy with the president. Okay, well, that would suggest to me that maybe you should clean up your own damn fascist party. I'm just saying, if you're unhappy with Donald Trump, maybe you should clean up your own house instead of trying to knock down the Democrats' house. I'm just saying. But again, he says, we're educating them to get involved in the democratic process so they can back a candidate they can be happy about and that they can support. Anybody but Bernie is what they're saying. So now these never Trump Republicans, again, instead of fixing the dumpster fire that is their own party, they are literally coming to try to take over the Democratic Party and to prevent Bernie Sanders. As such, Senator Ashen is running ads in Nevada against Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. Now, the group has plans to mobilize against Democratic presidential primary candidate Bernie Sanders in the state's 2020 caucuses, according to Miller. In addition to the Nevada Independent, according to the Nevada Independent, in addition to Miller, Sarah Longwell, political strategist and another never Trump Republican, and John Stubbs, a former official in the George W. Bush administration, who founded a Republicans for Hillary group in 2016. Oh, dear God. Now serve on the nonprofit's board of directors. Now, this is a dark money group, so we don't know who's funding it, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of shady billionaires putting in their shady money because these billionaires would lose a little bit and have to pay more in taxes. So they're, they've already spent about $13,000 on ads the day before and the day of the New Hampshire primary. Now, the Nevada campaign, Miller said, would begin imminently. Now, the kinds of ads they ran against Sanders in New Hampshire is about what you would expect from Republicans, okay? According to the article, they used Soviet imagery and scare tactics around socialism to discourage voters from voting for the Vermont senator. In a comment to courts, Miller said the Center Action's now efforts to get out the right-wing vote were aimed at providing voters with a choice. So they run these ads, right? That, oh my, if you vote for Bernie Sanders, you're voting for socialism, communism, eating rats, Venezuela, which is basically all they have, right? And then they say, oh, us? No, we're not red baiting. No, all we're doing is we're just giving Republican voters a choice to go and mess up with the Democrats. Okay, then. Now, he says, but wait. We're not like the other conservative groups. Oh, no. He said, this is not akin to conservative talk show host Hugh Hewitt going on TV saying Trump supporters should vote for the weakest Democrats to help him. That's considered meddling, and that is something we, as honorable Republicans and conservatives, we would never do. Quote, the people we are trying to talk to are voters who don't like the president, who want him to be defeated, people who are concerned that both parties have succumbed to the extremes. Look, and if you're on social media, Twitter especially, you would see this talking point all the time. I can't believe the Democrats would go so extreme as to actually try to advocate for health care for everybody. Oh, how terrible. I mean, this is something that only, 32 out of the 33 advanced developed countries in the world could master universal health care for everybody. I mean, it completely impossible. Pipe dream. Can't do it. How crazy. No, you have to understand, to the rest of the world, we're the crazy ones. Because we treat our own citizens like garbage. We let them die because they can't afford health care. We bill them tens of thousands of dollars for being unlucky enough to have gotten hurt and taken to a hospital that was out of your goddamn network. Or even if you were lucky enough to go to the right hospital network, the surgeon that saw you that day was not part of your network. And so, sad day for you. You're on the hook for tens of thousands, possibly more. What kind of system is that? What kind of system? It's garbage. It's garbage. So let me tell you who's extreme, the people who defend that. And so this both sides are crazy talking point is ridiculous. The Republicans have gone completely off the rails, and you had the Democrats for years chasing after them. Here's what the progressive movement's trying to do. We're trying to pull it back to, back to normalcy, right? Back to the actual center, which is where Bernie Sanders currently is. And look, progressive policy has massive populist support. 70% want Medicare for all. A vast majority want student loan forgiveness, living wage. So this is a garbage talking point from garbage people that, oh no, it's crazy. It's crazy to want those things. That can never happen. Really? But what happens when you point out every other country that can do the same goddamn thing? I mean, who are the crazy ones, right? To pointing at something that is completely doable and that has been done everywhere else and saying we can't do that here because what? We're exceptional? Again, they always talk about America. We're the exceptional ones. We're the best. America's the best. Really? For a country that is supposed to be the best at everything, we sure seem to suck at doing the things that actually help the American people. Again, it's ridiculous, right? But now, going back to garbage people, Miller seems to be one of those, right? So now, back in November of 2018, the New York Times revealed that his firm, called the Definers, right, was using anti-Semitic tropes about George Soros to discredit left-wing activists on Facebook. So this guy, right-wing playbook, George Soros, puppet master. Again, that is clearly anti-Semitic imagery that they are using. It's because when you go to the right and reach into their box of, tricks that they use to dupe everybody into voting for more tax cuts for the rich, essentially, and deregulation for corporations, the last thing that you pull out is anti-Semitism. It's at the bottom of the box, but it's always in there. It's always in there. And so the fallout from that, of course, resulted in Miller being fired from his job as a guest Republican on Pod Save America. So congratulations, Pod Save America, guys. You had this guy on for a while. And the Definers losing their contract with Facebook. Now, this is a guy that is now trying to stop Bernie Sanders. Well, I guess it would fit with his anti-Semitism because Bernie Sanders would be the first Jewish president in America. You can't have that, can they? Now, there's more. Definer's former chief executive, Matt Rhodes, who also worked on Mitt Romney's failed 2020 presidential campaign, has since founded with former Hillary Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook, the nonprofit Defending Digital Democracy Project at Harvard. Yeah. And both Rhodes and Mook worked with the Iowa Democratic Party on election security in the fall of 2019, months before the app developed by other former Clinton staffers mysteriously started malfunctioning, throwing the Iowa caucuses into complete and utter chaos. No, it had nothing to do with any of that, did it? Look, they want to stop Bernie Sanders. We know that. The people that the Democratic establishment, by the way, is teaming up with, people connected to this guy, to this Miller guy. I mean, come on, dude. Hillary Clinton staffers, political operatives, donor class, they're all teaming up with right-wingers just because they're never Trump, right? Never Trump. That's the only qualification. You can hold all of your horrible policy positions, but as long as you're saying, I don't like Donald Trump because he's rude and uncivil, well then welcome to the resistance. What are we resisting? Obviously progressives. I mean, they hate, the Democratic Party hates progressives more than they hate the right wing. So it's natural that they form these unholy alliances with these despicable people because guess what? Turns out They're despicable people too. Who knew? Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back, take a quick break. We'll come back. We got more stories. So we got progressives versus Mike Bloomberg. Very important. Then we have, of course, Donald Trump's spiritual advisor has been grifting, and I'm going to tell you how. So stay right here around the nation. We'll be right back in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here at TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, yeah, told you it was a quick break. All right, Glassdoor with the super chat says or asks, did you see John Oliver's take on Medicare for All? I did. It was pretty good. So, no, he brought up a lot of great points. I especially like the comparison between Buttigieg, the turd sandwich, Buttigieg's turd sandwich, and the turd sandwich with guac. So I thought it was a pretty good take. Leave it to a Brit, man. All right. Anyway, so yes, that was great. Now let's see. We have there's a comment earlier, right? Let's see. Professor Aris says he'd be signing his own death warrant if he chose Hillary as VP. Going back, of course, to Bloomberg. Best chance she'd have to be president. Yeah, look, I'm not quite sure what context, but I know for sure that that would not be a popular ticket. It would go down in epic flame. And so I don't think that would be that just shows you how completely disconnected Bloomberg is. That would be a disaster waiting. Anyway, so now I want to thank some patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation, Irma Thibault and Ruben Escobar Pepin, who are the newest patron supporters. Again, patreon.com/TYTNation if you want to support independent progressive media. We need your help more than ever. Okay. Anyway, thank you again for the super chats and the comments. Let's move on. Let's go to Bloomberg. Oh, super chat from Koro says, this is my rage donation. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Koro. And as I say, if you're not mad, you're not paying attention. So we're all kind of mad on this show. All right, moving on. Democratic Party is finding itself in a pretty strange place. Joe Biden, for example, is sinking in a lot of the polls, while Bernie Sanders takes his place. Well, that's fantastic. And now, unfortunately, due to that, there's a lot of establishment Democrats that are considering voting for a racist, sexist billionaire. No, I don't mean Donald Trump. They're not going to vote for Trump. But instead, former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. So that's interesting, right? Now, for the establishment, Bloomberg is seen as both the answer to Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. And these new polls have seen Bloomberg rise significantly, especially with African Americans, which I find to be very strange. Now, a New Morning Consult poll had Bernie Sanders leading nationally with 29%, Biden second, 19%, but holy crap, here comes Bloomberg at 18%, Pete Buttigieg in fourth, but a strong fourth, at 11%, and Warren, of course, running at the top 5 with 10%. So now Bloomberg, 18%, right up on Joe Biden's heels. Holy crap. So now what has happened? Well, the reason, of course, that Bloomberg is rising is because you can't shake a stick without seeing a Bloomberg ad. I expect to go outside and see a plane flying Bloomberg. Like, that's how bad it gets. Road signs, Bloomberg. I'm pretty sure my dash console is going to soon start playing Bloomberg ads. I wouldn't be surprised. That's how he spent about $400 million on ads. But hey, look, he's a billionaire, so that's barely pocket change for him, right? That money, of course, has allowed him to purchase endorsements from people like Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. So now Bloomberg has awarded her a share of a $70 million fund to support climate change initiatives in Washington, D.C. Not only that, but through his philanthropist organization, he has given $4 million in investments into D.C. schools from one of his, as I said, charities, right? Now you've got California Representative Harley Ruda, who also got $4.5 million for his political campaign from a Bloomberg Political Action Committee. So he is out there and has been spending millions upon millions of dollars on ads and buying people off at the local mayoral level. That's why he has now a lot of support from black mayors in cities where a lot of the people do not agree with that and have seen his record. And so, man, he's buying the election, or at least he's attempting to. He's trying to buy the Democratic nomination and maybe to buy the election itself. And so that's a big problem already. But it's just one of the many problems that surrounds Bloomberg that have caused progressives to speak out. Another more important thing was his record. Mainly his support of, up to recently, very recently in fact, his support of stop and frisk. Now, his support of stop and frisk has led progressive commentator Benjamin Dixon to find and release audio of Bloomberg speaking favorably about the program as recently as 2015, right? So he took that audio, we played this on the show, and, he cleaned it up, and it basically had him talking about how he loves stop and frisk, and that the only way, because he said that the majority, like, if you want to stop gun violence, well, you go and shake down all the African-American kids, African-American, brown and black people. And if they don't have the gun on them, well, it's because they probably have their gun at home. Assuming that, or making the assumption, of course, that all old black and brown people are violent gangbangers, right? And so that's Bloomberg. That's a huge, huge problem, right? So now Dixon, he encouraged people on social media using my Bloomberg story of basically telling people what it was like for a black and brown person to live under Mayor Bloomberg. Now, one of those stories came from Andrew J. Padilla, right? Who said, my friends and I, 17 to 18-year-old, were walking into Riverside Park next to Columbia University when we heard someone scream, hey. I didn't turn around. Hey isn't my name. One of my less street smart friends did, thank God. It was a cop with his gun drawn at us. So, wait a minute. Stop and frisk gave these officers the ability to stop people who look suspicious using whatever means they want to, right? That's a problem. I mean, if you look at all suspicious, which is, by the way, super vague, because it can basically mean, well, if you're somebody who's racist, well, look, you're super suspicious because you're black. So I'm going to stop you. I'm going to throw you up against a wall, and I'm going to frisk you. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. And it happened disproportionately towards black and brown teenagers. Now, later on, Bloomberg had talked about that in another interview. And he said, some people will say that it disproportionately happens to black and brown people. I think it happens disproportionately too much to white people. That's stuff that he said. And it's not just black and brown people. You also had Muslims, which are also brown people. But Muslims were pointed out specifically by the NYPD. Momita Ahmed, founder of Millennials for Bernie, recounted her father getting stopped, detained, and held for hours in 2002 when she was just 12 years old. At the time, she had no idea what happened. So her father gets forcibly detained for no reason, right? And she's like, where's my dad? I don't know where he is. She started going to different hospitals to try to find out if he was dead. And by the way, she was only 12 that she ended up having to do this. Could you imagine? Well, if you look like me or Michael Bloomberg, then no, you'd never have to imagine this because this would never happen to us. But this is a reality of living under Michael Bloomberg if you're a black and brown person. So, and despite this, right, now you have Michael Bloomberg able to buy 22% of black support in the primary. More so than Bernie Sanders, who has a history of fighting for marginalized groups, including black and brown people. I mean, it's insane what money can do. And by the way, Bloomberg is, as I mentioned before, he's come out and said, well, look, I didn't mean that. Look, I completely disavow stop and frisk. In fact, when I was in office, I tried to stop and frisk. Now, that is a complete lie. In fact, the amount of stop and frisk that's used increased sevenfold under his tenure between 2002 and 2013. And it reached its peak in 2011 when more than 685,000 people were stopped. According to the New York Civil Liberties Union, about 90% of stopped frisked New Yorkers were found innocent. So that's the results of that, right? So many people that were forcibly stopped and frisked. And the vast majority of them had not done anything wrong. That's disastrous. Then, of course, you add on the 40 sexual harassment allegations against him. You also have Bloomberg being on record of being against the minimum wage. Now he says, oh, no, I'm in favor of a $15 minimum wage. Of course I am. But back in 2018, at the IMF, Bloomberg said this, quote, the first thing to do is to get rid of impediments to job creation. For example, the U.S. has two things, one of which is brilliant and one of which is used all the time, but dysfunctional. Though we just don't think of it this way, we have minimum wages. A minimum wage means that the employer has to pay up to that level for their employees. So what would go through the employer's mind if they have to raise the amount of money they have to pay one of their employees? It is, can I do with fewer employees, but we don't want companies to cut back in the number of people they employ. What we should really be trying to do is convince them to employ more people. And in the interest of giving people a living wage, we're getting them to lose their jobs. Not everybody, but some. So right there, he was trying to basically point out how, we shouldn't do a living wage because that's going to lead to job losses. That is a Republican talking point. And guess what? It's a false one. It's not supported by the fact there's actually no correlation to less people working or less hours worked due to increases in the minimum wage. But then again, Michael Bloomberg is a Republican. And though in reality, though, I think it's more complicated than that. See, well, it's actually complicated but simple, right? Because we're trying to view this as, oh, he's a Republican, he's independent, he's a Democrat. What does he really believe? Michael Bloomberg believes in Michael Bloomberg. He's a chameleon. And that's what he is. Thinking about it, it's like, wait a minute. What does Michael Bloomberg do best? He helps Michael Bloomberg. and so I understand, but wait, Jeff, he gives to so many different organizations. He gives to Moms Demand Action, and he's trying to do something about gun control. I mean, how could you say that Michael Bloomberg helps himself? Well, a lot of those charitable organizations, by the way, for one, again, Michael Bloomberg's richer than God. He's got $60 billion. And so he can afford to do that, to give basically what is akin to pennies to do something about gun control. And also, guess what? That's a tax write-off. I mean, sure, he can say, hey, look, I'm doing good things. And yes, maybe he does. But he can also write that off on his taxes as well. So I think there's some greed in there. But look, guy, he's a chameleon. He's a chameleon. He changes to whatever suits him. And all those blue no matter who people, Bernie's not a Democrat, which is garbage, right? Should be up in arms about Bloomberg. But instead of doing that and being that way, instead they're like, Michael Bloomberg. Yeah, maybe we should vote for him. It's ridiculous. Now, Dixon, by the way, he's got a quote here from the Guardian. He said, quote, about his money is saturating an image of him that doesn't match up with the experience people of New York have had with him. He has bought himself out of his true record. No, absolutely. Absolutely. 100% correct. Now, going back to Padilla here, he said, quote, it is supremely offensive to people of color to make them choose between two white supremacists. It's really offensive to working class people to choose between two billionaires. That's what a lot of the stories, by the way, are highlighting. It is offensive to even suggest that Bloomberg should be the Democratic nominee. Do I really have to choose between two racist oligarchs? That is a nightmare scenario. I mean, it's true. But see, there are so many people that are being blinded to his record. Or too many people that are simply pushing him because he's not Bernie. Joanne Reed, for example, told her audience, and by the way, this is a woman of color, right? That Bloomberg is best to take on a Republican because he basically is a Republican. Well, yeah, he was. He was. That wasn't a criticism, by the way. It was praise from a so-called progressive. There's no way in hell Americans should allow Bloomberg to buy his way into the White House. Which, by the way, I don't think it'd happen. He'd get destroyed by Donald Trump and would take the Democratic Party with him. If you actually care about winning, you will not vote in this primary for what is essentially the Democrats' Donald Trump. And if somehow he's able to buy his way into the nomination, then I don't know. I think a lot of you might agree with me that we just not vote for Bloomberg at all. Okay. I think I'm pretty clear on that. One more here. Paula White is a prosperity gospel minister, and she serves in the White House as President Trump's spiritual advisor. And her latest advice is that instead of paying your bills, you should give her your money. Now, this is according to a recent report by Mother Jones. And it reveals that the Trump-loving preacher recently told followers at her supernatural ministry school in Miami that they could secure God's favor by sending her church as much money as possible. It's the classic grift, right? Even if that meant skipping your monthly electric bill. In particular, White said that followers who send their money to Florida Power and Light every month instead of giving it to her church are treating the electric company better than they treat God. Quote, instead of writing that check to the house of God as I'm instructed to, then what I'm saying spiritually is, FBL, I've now established a spiritual law that put you first. So FBL, save my family. FBL, delivered my drug-addicted son. FBL, kill this cancer that doctors say is in my body. Wow. Hey, man, look, who needs lights when you got Jesus? Seriously, though, if you're in the position to have to choose, then it's likely you're not doing very well to begin with. And so this whole prosperity thing, hey, it's making somebody prosperous. It just ain't the people who are given. I mean, look, that's the grift, though. I cannot believe they're saying that there are people out there saying, hey, you know what? Instead of paying your monthly bills, give me all your money. And then there are people that do it. Oh, no, look, again, I understand this is prosperity gospel and that generally doesn't make sense to begin with. But it's also completely opposite of the guy who said, give up all your belongings to the poor and the needy and become homeless if you want to walk with me. That guy, of course, being Jesus. This is deeply irresponsible. That lady is a literal millionaire. But guess what? If you hear her tell it, it's because she gave up money to her own church, which ultimately went back to her. She asked, how did I get to the White House from the trailer? The answer, of course, was giving money to God by way of the church. Securing Paula White White House caliber blessings would require students of the supernatural to give what's called a first fruits offering, one that is significant, the first week's pay or even the first month's pay, to signify putting God first in everything. Because you know what? Those utility companies, they'll understand if you tell them, no, wait, I gave my bill, the money that I was going to pay for the electricity, I gave that to Jesus. And so you can't shut that up. What's that? You're shutting me off? Oh, no. That's what it is. Now, she claimed that during a sermon that God once told her in 2009, a bad year for her, that she needed to give her entire annual salary to God. And you know how much she had to give over to her church? $8 million. Oh, could you imagine? But wait, if you make $8 million a year, you're generally doing pretty good, right? You could afford to give that up. And again, that goes to her church and goes back in her own pocket. That's the grift, folks. It's real. And she works in the White House, which again, does not surprise me at all. Who's better to work in the White House than a fellow grifter to the grifter in chief, to the con man in chief, Donald Trump? And so many of these allegedly godly people on the right, by the way, unfortunately believe in this stuff, and it is kind of sad. And now, to be fair, White faces a lot of criticism from actual Christians on this. Now, one thing in particular that she faced criticism on is when she started selling resurrection seeds. This for only a small price of $1,144. You can get everlasting life. Well, what's $1,144 compared to eternal everlasting life? I mean, obviously, bargain's a bargain. No, understand. I'm not dumping on Christians. I have a lot of love for you guys, right? I have a lot of love for actual believers, right? And the vast majority of them are not falling for the obvious grift. It's really the people who fall for this are the ones that are actually the most desperate, right? Who aren't all that wealthy, to believe it or not, knowledgeable. They're very impoverished, generally gullible. And when you're in those situations, you generally look for something that is bigger and better than yourself, something to believe in, right? Whether it be a politician or a lot of people turn to religion. It seems to be the natural thing, and that we've seen all throughout time. Systems of religion where desperate people believes that they can believe something and believe in something better. And who better to take advantage of those people than people who actually don't necessarily believe, who spin these fake stories to get you to open your wallet and to give what little you have left for their own edification. And that is a huge problem. These are the people, by the way, these poor people that end up getting duped by both the Paula Whites of the world as well as the Donald Trumps. It's super sad to see. Okay. All right. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation, and helping out progressive independent media to help us stay on the air and to actually give out the good word. Also, if you're interested in this t-shirt, which is awesome, by the way, designed by a friend of the show, Dan Spearin. So big shout out to him for his artistry. It says, if you can't read it, by the way, last night I woke up and thought, what if we still haven't hit rock bottom yet? Scary thought, but it's true. So you can get that by going to the Teespring link in the description and all that stuff. So just another way to help independent progressive media. All right. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you later.
Mike Pounds.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Please clap. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.